Okay, my friends, here it is. In this video, I'm going to show you how to apply and how I apply the liquid fertilizers. So first I'm going to say a few words about it, and then I'll take you out and I'll show you exactly how I do it in my setup. So I've applied the liquid fertilizers a number of different ways over the years. When I used to grow in California, I would have big beds. The beds were 20 feet wide by 80 feet long, and they were inside of a greenhouse, and I laid down drip lines. And so that's how by drip emitter is how I fertilize that entire crop. I also did foliar feedings, but mostly by drip emitter. Now also in a home garden setup, you can use and apply these fertilizers by hand. The watering, either if you have a really small garden, just a watering can. But if you have a moderate sized garden, like I'll show you out back, then you can apply with a submersible pump. And that is my favorite way to do it, applying by hand. So there's two different ways that we can go about applying it as well. There's the soil drench and there is the foliar feeding. Soil drench is just how it sounds. You drench the soil. Maybe you hit some of the leaves, but not intentionally. It's all about saturating and feeding the soil. But the foliar feeding is about feeding the foliage. And so we don't actually, that we do with more of a pump sprayer, which I'll show you. We do that with a handheld pump sprayer. And we use much smaller amounts of everything, but we go by in the night and we spray just the leaves, and we don't worry about it getting the roots, because plants, remember, plants have evolved to absorb nutrients through their leaves as well as their roots. Okay, so let's go outside and I will show you how I apply these fertilizers, and then we'll come back in and I'll give you some of the best tips. Okay, so the best setup for applying the fertilizers utilizes this submersible pump, which I will put a link in the description if you want to get this exact one. Then I like to place a paint strainer kind of mesh over it. Not too fine, because you want all the water to flow through, but this helps keep debris that might accidentally slip in from going into the pump. So then I attach the garden hose and I place it into the barrel. Now this barrel is a 60-gallon capacity, and I have it filled with rainwater. You can use pond water, stream water, whatever kind of dechlorinated water that you want. Or if you have to use tap water, fill it and then let it sit for about 12 to 24 hours, and at least the chlorine will evaporate. Once both the pump and the nozzle, the hose end nozzle, are submersed in the water, plug the pump in and let it start to circulate. Open up the valve so that the water is flowing, because this is going to mix the ingredients as we add them one by one. Very important to have it mixing right now. Okay, first thing I always add to the barrel is the JADAM microbial solution. This is really the bread and butter. This is the cornerstone of the healthy garden, because we want to be adding this diverse plethora of microorganisms in this solution. Now, since we have a 60-gallon capacity container, I'm going to add 2 gallons of the JADAM microbial solution, and that will give us a 1 to 30 ratio. Now, you can go all the way to 1 to 500 as diluted as that, and it's still effective. But I wouldn't go much stronger than 1 to 20. So I do 1 to 30. I found it to be completely effective, and you will not have any concentration issues at that ratio. Okay, now we are going to get into our barrels of fermenting liquid fertilizer. And since it's still early enough in the season that I wish to encourage luscious leafy growth, I'm going to use 1 gallon of the chicken manure fertilizer, which this was all chicken manure and leaf mold and some occasional weeds. But you see how dark and rich this stuff is? The plants love this stuff because chicken manure is high in nitrogen, yes, but also in potassium and phosphorus and calcium. This is a very well balanced source of plant nutrition. So this is a very important one to use, the manure JLF. Next, we're going to add 1 gallon of what I call the basic liquid fertilizer. This is the wild grass, some alfalfa, also lots of dandelions and thistles, which those are weeds that are very high in minerals, calcium and magnesium and many others. So we add that to the brew for a balanced nutrition. You can see how much thinner this one is than the manure fertilizer. Next, we're going to add 1 cup of a water-soluble calcium supplement that I made myself. Leave me a comment if you wish me to make a video on how to make this, I will. But we add 1 cup, and that gives it a 1 to 800 ratio, which I found is adequate for all the critical functions that calcium plays in the plant life cycle. Next thing we're going to add is about a half a liter of the fish fertilizer, and this is the JADAM fish, not the hydrolysate. So we're going to add about a half of a liter. That's going to give us a 1 to 400 ratio, give or take, and I found that's most effective. Okay, next thing we're going to add is the wetting agent, and this is the homemade Castile oil soap, which is actually called JADAM wetting agent, which I learned to make this from JADAM in 2017. So we're going to add 1 liter of this. This is going to give us about a 1 to 200 ratio. So if you have an infestation of pests, cabbage worms or aphids or mites, you could increase that to 2 liters in this mixture, which would give us a 1 to 100 ratio, and that's about as strong as you want to take it. But 1 to 200 is perfectly adequate for maintenance. Now we want to make sure it's all mixed together really well. That's important. And then we apply it. Now, there's certain plants that can take a deluge of this. For example, these potato plants. I know that they can handle this kind of watering where I'm just dousing both the foliage and the soil itself, so it's getting down into the roots and the tubers. Also, behind it, up against the fence, the collard greens, which are thriving, they are also able to take this. So we're going to soak them really good. The celery as well, I know, can take this, but also the corn. Corn is very important to give it a nice, good soaking because it's a very hungry crop, and I plant it very intensely. So I make sure that I fertilize it with plenty of this stuff. All those crops you just saw can handle that without any issues. Okay, now there's some plants such as tomatoes that don't appreciate getting their leaves wet in this way with this stuff. So we attach the watering wand and we go ahead and just root drench only things like tomatoes, okay? Or if something, because they just do better when you don't get this on their leaves. So then also we'll use the wand to water every inch of things like the brassicas because we want to really coat everything with this stuff, because it's got the natural insecticides on it, but also because it's a balanced nutrition and balance of microbes because of the JADAM microbial solution and stuff. Yeah, there's what we would consider bad microbes in it, but they're kept in check by the good microbes. And so I've been doing it this way for years, and everything is thriving. The plants are thriving, my health is thriving. It's all just thriving because that's how nature intended it to be. The good and the bad are one. Okay, so there you have the how to apply it. Now, why and when would I apply it? When would be once a week. Just start with 1 time a week, you water like this, and everything is going to be pretty much good. But it's very important that you read the plants. You have to learn to read the effect of the plants. So you need to understand what a sad plant kind of looks like, or what an unhealthy plant looks like. When the leaves are drooping or when they're curling and things, that can indicate all kinds of things. When the leaves are curling up, that generally means they're trying to get away from whatever they're being exposed to, whether it's too much fertilizer solution, even the natural ones can do it, or whether it's too much sunlight. Which would indicate a magnesium deficiency in the soil, because magnesium is the central ion in the chlorophyll molecule, and it gets used up in the process of photosynthesis. And so a lack of magnesium will make the plants not be able to handle the sunlight that they're getting. But anyways, that's kind of like an art form, and it can take years to master, I suppose. But just begin to read the plants and to see after feeding with this stuff, they should be singing to the air, to the sky. They should be just happy to be alive and vibrant and perky. And the stuff, when you eat it, should be very flavorful. It should be abounding with minerals, because flavor is an indicator of the mineral content, so long as it hasn't artificially been tampered with. But a good, rich, full flavor is a sign of thriving soil food web, because that's a lot of minerals in the soil. So after a time of farming and gardening like this, after a year or two, your soil will be so rich you'll hardly need to use this stuff at all. Just if you notice any kind of a problem or a pest infestation. But I mean, I do it once a week, once every couple weeks. I mean, sometimes I go even longer, depending, and it's all good. Okay, so hopefully that answers all your questions, my friends. If you have any more questions, put them in the comments. I will try to get to them, although the channel's really taken off, which is great. It means people are hungry for this kind of knowledge. So if I don't answer your question, it's probably because it's already been answered in the comments and you weren't reading through the comments looking for the answer to your question first. Okay? So, all right, check out the links in the descriptions for all the good stuff, and I'll see you next time.